Okay, we are live. Manny, energy product distribution. Let's get this started.
Let's do it, Eric.
All right, so lots to talk about, and thanks for jumping on here to talk about it.
Thank you for having me. Anytime. I do like your podcast, so I like being a part of it too.
Thank you. So I was on your website, and something that I wanted to discuss, or I wanted to ask you about today, was, well, first of all, you have a wonderful website. I'm going to add it to the stream. And what I mean by that, it has a lot of layers to it. First of all, it's very clear. It's very easy to read. It's very easy to scroll through, but there's a lot of depth to it. So it's you can go down any rabbit hole you want to basically learn anything you want just about anything you could want, as you can see. And what I mean by that is, if we come up here to products, you can see just how well organized everything is and clear on, where you want to head. Under solutions, I mean, this is a lot of information that it's I don't know, it's sparse. It's not necessarily all in one place like you've organized it. So huge credit, because I think that's enormously valuable for you as a company, but for everybody else as a consumer that gets access to use it.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. We spent a lot of time on it. Historically, EPD as a 3M master distributor has always had an end user facing website, really to promote window film and paint protection film to the end user. And that's always been our focus. And really, the website that you just showed started out that way. And we want to really make the user experience a positive one, so that the end user, who knows very little about these products, can find answers to questions. And ultimately, the call to action for us as a distributor is to drive that end user to a dealer through our dealer locator. But one of the big pushes we've had this year is also to make our website, and we're not done yet, a tool more for dealers. Okay. And by that, I mean, really, there's a back end function that you may not necessarily even see. For example, EPD Partner Portal. And that's something with a username and password, our customers can go into the back end of our website and access a lot of tools that they can use to be more productive as 3M dealers or EPD customers. And so I appreciate any kind of compliment we get on it, Eric, and it means a lot coming from you, because we spent a lot of time developing it. That's a big part of my role. I nitpick it to death. I try to look at every aspect of it, make sure the wording's right, there are no typos, make sure that an end user or a dealer can get to where they want to go from A to B with the fewest number of clicks possible. And I take a look at all the statistics that our website company gives us in terms of what's working, what's not working, to make sure that we can continually improve it. And to be frank, we just have a lot more improvements for our customers and end users coming.
I believe it's one of the most important places you could be spending your energy, like I said, both for the dealer network, and then also, like you said, drawing in the consumers and being able to, inform them and route them to your dealer network, because the potential there is enormous. And it's not something that any dealer, no matter how good a dealer is at doing that, that's not really what they got into this business to do. It was more, to service the customer. And when a manufacturer can properly, deploy their resources to get that done, that's tremendously valuable for them, for the dealers that they service, as well as obviously the industry as a whole.
Yeah, I mean, there's certain members of the industry that are really digitally savvy. Obviously, you're one of those members, Eric. And I think that's something that we took our foot off the gas for a little while. And it wasn't necessarily our biggest priority. And then within the past couple of years, we made it a priority. But of course, as you know, not starting from scratch, but trying to get up to speed on this type of topic, a topic that changes every day, is very difficult. And then not only is it difficult to catch up, it's difficult to get ahead. And so that's why I spend so much time, and we put a lot of dollars behind it too. And we're just trying to get to the point where we're as digitally savvy within the industry as we need to be in order to be as effective to our customers, meaning our dealers, as well as their customers or end users, to be as value-added a distributor as we possibly can be.
So a part of your website is EPD University, which is super on brand, and again, just like well done, the whole page and everything. Can you tell us a little more about what EPD University is?
Sure. Yeah, EPD University is really something that we've had since 2004, and we called it EPD University, but we didn't necessarily brand it or make it public. It was just well known within our dealer network. And what it was a forum for our dealers to receive continuing education in terms of sales, marketing, and product knowledge. And actually, we started it not face to face, but via webinar. And this is going back to 2004 when webinars were a fraction of what they are today, even a fraction of what they were prior to COVID. And we had a logo with it, and we would mention it all the time. And every month since 2004, I think, 2004, we would run different topics that would benefit our dealers. Well, one of the things that we decided to do this year, or I should say in the past 2 years, was really to formalize our installation training, which is something the industry does very well, but something that we wanted to do just as well as the rest of the industry. And so we put the installation training under the same banner of EPD University. We redid the logo, we made it more collegiate in feel, and we're actually seeking accreditation for it. So EPD University, while it's called EPD University, is not an accredited university, nor do we advertise it as such, but we are seeking that, so that anyone who wants to come through EPD University to learn some sort of trade, whether it's vinyl, window film, or paint protection film, whether it's architectural or automotive, we'll teach them how to get started in terms of doing something with their hands, how to install the product. And that's really the major push now of EPD University. That's the biggest part of the interest that we get. And so we're trying to bring new film technicians into the industry, ultimately to pair them with dealers. And we do it by creating this this notion of film school, and letting people know that are looking for a career change. Come to a film school. We'll teach you how to become a film technician. We'll give you the beginning building blocks necessary for you to go home and practice, so that you can become a valuable member to the industry, which really is all about installation at this point, because that's always the biggest obstacle to scaling all of our businesses.
And obviously, you've said it, and your website gives that feeling of, this is obviously we know the industry needs more staff, so like this makes obvious sense. Is there something specific that like drew you to it? Do you feel like this is like you sit back and go, how can I best benefit our dealer network over the course of the next 5-10 years? Do you feel like this is that kind of what pulled you there? Is it something else? Or
Yeah, you're spot on, Eric. I mean, when the economy is good, there's a labor shortage, and right now, as we're heading into potentially a recession, or in a recession, and the economy's bad, labor's still a problem, right? So it's just a constant struggle that we have in this industry, and it really is probably either next to awareness or above awareness in terms of what's preventing everyone from scaling their business and growing. And so when we look at the value add that we provide as a distributor, and we hear customer feedback that says, hey, I need, my biggest issue is not one of demand and making the phone ring. My biggest issue is one of getting film on glass, or film on metal if it's PPF, or vinyl on metal. And so for us, that's when we really started to formalize EPD University and put the installation piece under the brand, and really start marketing the brand and make it feel like a film school. And it's to the point now where on the page that you showed, we have a call to action, which is essentially to allow the aspiring film technician to register for training. They can see what courses are being offered when. They can register for the training. They can pay for the training. They don't even have to ask us to enroll. If they want answers to questions, they can certainly ask us. We'll be happy to help them understand what the training includes, what it doesn't include, and then they can register. But it allows the film technician who knows what he or she wants to do to register right on the spot. And then we get a message saying, Joe Blow registered, and they're coming on December 20th to your 3-day PPF course. Then they show up, and we're waiting for them. And once they register, they get a series of emails letting them know where to make hotel reservations. It reminds them that training is coming up. And then there's a follow-up email campaign to the film technician after they go through training, even asking them to rate our training program so we can get better.
That's so beautiful, because I mean, it's literally beautifully laid out. It's so easy to interact with, which makes it more likely that people are going to sign up, right? Like you just want to know
Yeah.
what you can get, when it's available, and sign up. And I imagine on your end removes the bottlenecks of like that could come into like manual scheduling. Like if people are
Yes.
emailing in and all that, like that becomes, it gets lost in the process eventually. Like it just becomes inefficient or whatever. This is something that can stay, I think, efficient, hopefully profitable, so that you want to do more of it, because I'm sure like it's certainly beneficial. I mean, we know how much, what a demand there is from training, both from people trying to get into the industry and people in the industry just looking to sharpen their skills. So the easier you make it, obviously the better. And you've done a really, really great job with that.
Yeah, I mean, you're 100% correct in terms of the bottleneck of manual scheduling. One of the things that we only recently did was what I explained earlier, which is the automated registration that a candidate can perform. Before there was manual scheduling, and it really consumed one of our internal resources. Her name's Marion, Mother Marion, as some people may know online. She was doing a lot of the manual scheduling. She was answering questions from trainees, and she was trying to schedule everything and coordinate with our trainer, Sean. And it was just really a laborious process. And I said, this is just a wasted resource here with what Marion was doing. She was doing a marvelous job with it, but it just wasn't a good use of her time. And so we invested the money necessary in order to allow for the automatic or online registration. And when you look at the resources and the money that it took to get to where we were and now where we are, it's still an investment. I don't know that the training fees, when appropriate, even pay for it, just because for us, we're looking at training as a way to bring more people into the industry, as well as to help pair them with our dealer network, because our dealers are looking for more installers. And so it's just another part of our value add.
It's interesting how many over the last couple of years, what a foothold like window tint and PPF training schools and individual
Mm-hmm.
trainings have like taken place. You know, there was always a tint school here and there, but now there's kind of a lot of tint schools. Not saying there's too many, because I don't think there's enough, but there's more and more. And then there's people that are, you know, doing training sessions and seminars, as well as individual training. And it just shows what a demand there is for it.
Yeah, I think you're right. The tint schools, wherever they were probably not even well known. They were there, but people didn't necessarily know about them. Maybe they were manufacturer specific. And then I think, of course, as the industry has grown and the demand for tint schools or tint training has increased, so too have the number of schools and of certainly the marketing of those schools and universities and things like that. And they serve a real purpose because this industry is growing. I don't know if it's chicken or egg. I mean, is the market growing, and as a consequence, the number of people wanting to get into the market is growing, or is it the other way around, whereby more and more people are coming into the industry, they're marketing, that creates additional end user awareness. And so, I think regardless of whether it's, chicken or the egg, I think it's completely positive for everybody within this industry, because when all is said and done, this is an industry, and I'll go back to, the mid 60s when it really dates back to, in terms of both major products that the industry includes, urethane and polyester, and say it took 50 years before really there was sort of good end user awareness. It was for the longest time, I think people were estimating that end user awareness was maybe 2 to 3%, whatever it was, low single digit. And a lot of people's idea of window film was really wrong. The end user really didn't know exactly what window film was. They had some sort of idea, maybe purple tint that bubbles on the back window, but not really the understanding of the sophistication of the products of today, and maybe very little awareness of paint protection film. And so, I think once the industry's gotten bigger and we've reached a little bit higher market awareness, then of course you see hockey stick type growth. And I think that's what we're in. And I think it doesn't take any more than a trip to SEMA or a trip to the IWFC, or just really looking through an issue of Window Film Magazine, or going online to Facebook forums that are relevant to the industry, to see how many new players there are in terms of manufacturers, distributors, installers, dealers, and so on and so forth.
So definitely, like, something I noticed alongside you at SEMA was how many big booths there were in the West Hall, and everybody was like going for it. There was no shortage of exotic cars, and like big booths, like massive booths. So That's great. And like you said, it's been growth, growth, growth. Even when there's a shortage of cars, it just means you want to protect your investment. The price went up. That means spend more money on it. And cause you need it for longer. It's all really worked out. Now, we obviously nobody can predict what kind of economy next year, the year after we're going to be in. But we can at least try to keep a temperature gauge to kind of what could happen and so on. I'm curious what your opinion is. Obviously, if if everybody's in the streets together, then it's too late then. But what realistically happens is things get tough, and the businesses that aren't as fit to be in business are the ones that really, really suffer and get wiped out. The ones who are doing well will do they'll do less well. Maybe there might be some that thrive, and then there's going to be some who just put themselves in the shittiest of positions that didn't work out for exactly what happened. Where do you kind of see that next few years? Is there anything that you would, warn your dealers or tell your dealers that might make them more fit, that you really feel is worth taking action? Not just, hey, these are best practices, but hey, in the next few years, these are things you might want to really get a hold of.
Yeah, sure. I think it's a good question. I mean, I think my opinion would be that the automotive dealer or the architectural dealer has a diversified product offering, right? From the automotive standpoint, whether it's window film, whether it's PPF, whether it's a coating, maybe even a vinyl color change. The architectural side of the business, they have energy films, security films, decorative films, architectural finishes, things like that. And then some do both, architectural and automotive. So really there's a diversified portfolio that someone can offer. And if 2008 is any indication as to what might happen now, I think you're absolutely right. I think those that really were not necessarily scaling their business, and they were really just kind of competing by lowering their price, probably fell by the wayside. And they either left the industry entirely, or maybe they ended up working for somebody else as an installer or a salesperson or whatever the case might be. I think those that anticipated the housing crisis or ultimately the economic decline in 2008 prepared earlier. They started making the turn to commercial. They started investing appropriately, and they came out ahead. Now, I think we may see a similar situation, perhaps. And I think those that really kind of compete at the bottom, potentially the history is going to repeat itself, where they find that it's no longer viable to stay in the industry, or it might make more sense to go work for somebody else. But I think those that are really aggressive and have been scaling their businesses and continue to reinvest are going to do well. Maybe less well, but it'll still be well. Maybe they figure out how to get more revenue per customer because the number of customers that come through their door is down, but they're good business people. They're going to figure it out. And I think that economic downturns, though, can also create opportunities based on us having a diversified product portfolio. To your point, when there are less cars, you want to protect it. But by the same token, you could say, well, what's potentially happening in terms of an economic downfall? Well, energy costs are going to go up, probably, right? And so energy films play into that, into those hands. So there is opportunity if you make it. And I think those that scale their businesses and are good business people tend to figure out, they see those opportunities and they go chase them, and they end up doing well.
It's awareness and being able to adapt, I feel like, are just two skills that if you can have those, if you can see what's going on at any level and you're willing to make changes, you're probably going to be in a great shape, right?
You're 100% right. The ability to adapt, seeing the future and adapting is a skill set very few people have, right? But because not everybody can see the future. I know sometimes I can't. Actually, all the time I can't. I don't have a crystal ball in this industry. But if if someone's telling you what's happening, or you see it happening before your very eyes, and you're willing to adapt, and change can be very difficult, that puts you further ahead of the curve than those who don't want to change. And change can be very hard to swallow. But those who do change are the ones who adapt, to your point, and those are the ones that end up usually winning.
Yeah, and it's like I feel like everybody, well, at least the people who are in business. Have their own business, can probably relate to when they first started their business and they felt like the little person, the little guy or lady, and they said, okay, I'm going to win for this reason because the company I used to work for does this wrong or is not treating their customer right or whatever. Like they saw their angle. They're like, I'm going to go a step beyond, or I'm going to, whatever it is. And like, they have that flexibility when they're new. It's important, I feel like, to always like maintain that flexibility when you're not that new person and somebody else is potentially in the industry, coming in the industry, to say, hey, I have a fresh look on this and I can do it any way I need to. I don't have to do it the way it's been done.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, right, the bigger you are, the more rules and controls you put in place, and that makes things harder to change. Also, you have more to lose when you change, and you change incorrectly, and so you become more conservative. So I think that's just human behavior. But you're right. I think you have to be willing to turn everything inside out. And there are a lot of companies that are big companies that do something that you maybe as a consumer see in your outside of the window film world. And you wonder, why did they do that? Right. And then it ends up paying off for the company. It's hard for you to see because it's a big change. And I think sometimes we have to look at that for ourselves, and we have to do things differently. And EPD is doing a lot of things that are differently this year versus last year and the year before. You touched upon our digital strategy, and there's some more things we're doing digitally that I think I'd like to be able to share on a future podcast with you that aren't ready to really show yet to people. But we are looking at doing things differently and providing more value to our customers. And sometimes that's easier said than done. You have to get out of your comfort level, and you have to do some things that you historically have said no to or you're reluctant to do, and be willing to just dive into the deep end and see how it works out. Not every time it's going to work out. And so you just have to, maybe change things again, maybe go back to what you were doing or take a different direction. And hopefully in the end, it works out.
Does dealer rep to dealer relationship fall into that? Because that's something that I feel like it's always been on the forefront of my mind, because you interact with the reps, like as a window film dealer in the past. And, if you ask somebody, what would you like out of your rep? You get obviously a diverse response.
Yes, you will.
I'd like to see them. I don't want to see them. I want them to check up on me. I don't want to hear from them. I just want my work. Like, you get all those things, and then that's fine. But then you're also, obviously, we're entering a digital age, which we've been in, but like now it's speeding up. And then on top of that, you then compound COVID and maybe the getting away from traveling as much as maybe in the past. So with all of that, what do you like? Do you kind of feel like, you kind of, I don't know, are you split down the middle? Are you kind of headed in one direction because you see the future in this case? Because probably you've been doing for decades, essentially, is that aspect of it, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. I think if you talk to different dealers, they're going to give you a different opinion as to what they want from a rep, right? Some want to be taken to lunch and that's it. Some never want to hear from you. Some do. Some want a free pen. Others want you to just give them a lead to a skyscraper in their local city. And that's historically what we've always valued or seen as our value add at EPD, is really more from a lead generation standpoint. Maybe we've not been as good at some of the other things that just everybody else seems to do or take for granted. And those are things that we're trying to do better for ourselves, because what we're seeing from the industry, and this is just my own observation, it may, people may agree, may disagree, is I think there are more members of the industry who want the basics from their rep than want the advanced, sophisticated things from their rep. They want to hear from their rep just to check in, not to be evasive or anything, but just to check in, to feel appreciated, to have an ear to talk to go over some things and things like that. I think they also want just to be able to buy film, make sure you have it, get it when they want it, as quickly as they want it, and so on and so forth. And sometimes that's easier said than done, especially when you're in a world of supply chain issues and manufacturing constraints, because, it's not, I can order a whole bunch of film. That doesn't mean I'm going to have it. 3M can want to make a whole bunch of film. Doesn't mean they're going to always get all the raw materials they need to get to be able to do that. And that's same for every other distributor and manufacturer out there. And so I think, though, our move at EPD is really to do more of the basics better, and maybe to not focus as much on some of the non-basics that I think we always did focus on at the expense of the basics. And so, I think our customer base should hopefully see that. But that's not to say we still don't want to provide the non-basics to our customers. And by that, I mean leads. The difference now, though, for us is everything we're doing is not as overt, or excuse me, everything we're doing with respect to lead generation is not as overt to our customers as it once was. Why? Because we're putting a lot of money in our website to capture end user interest. And the call to action for the end user interest is to go to our dealer locator, type in their zip code, and see a list of dealers nearby, and to contact those dealers via telephone, email, or a click through to their website. Now, one thing that we don't do is we don't really share the statistics with our dealers as to how many leads we send them. But I know what we do send them. And what we send them now is a heck of a lot more than what we've ever sent historically in the past, when we've been overt about our focus of helping our dealers generate leads. So we're actually doing more of what we've historically done, but it's just not as obvious to our customers because everything is, to your point, Eric, it's a digital world, and we're trying to make it seamless and automated because that's what the end user wants. And ultimately, if we can deliver the end user the user experience they're looking for, we're positive that that ultimately gives our dealers more leads than any other approach.
So on that subject, then, Nick in the comments asked, why do distribution companies not spend more money on TV advertisements for consumer awareness? Is a simple answer: because the return on investment with online is just far superior.
Well, I think you can even say, well, you could ask that question before there was a such thing as online. Why historically have manufacturers or distributors never done that, right? I mean, I've seen dealers that do it on cable access years ago. They ran a commercial at 2 a.m. type of thing. And, it worked well for them and the local market, and it was cost effective for them to do it. But I don't think you're ever going to see the window film industry or a manufacturer take out a Super Bowl ad. And I think it's all because of return on investment. It's very difficult to explain what this product does. And now that the online aspect of things has come through, and every advertiser knows it's very cost effective to advertise online, that's where all the money is being spent. But I think, in terms of, end user awareness right now, the best bang for the buck is to try to capture the interest of an end user who already knows what they want, to make sure you're found, so that when that end user types in window film or PPF, you want to make sure you're the person they find, or you're the company they find, before your competition. And the manufacturer wants to make sure they're the manufacturer that the end user finds before another manufacturer, and ultimately drive dealer leads through their locators, just like I do as a distributor. So I doubt very much, Nick, you'll ever find manufacturers doing any kind of typical traditional advertising, whether it's radio or TV, at the manufacturer level, but in favor of everything that's happening online now.
How are you dealing with things like TikTok? Like, where do you currently stand with that as far as EPD goes?
Yeah, we're not doing anything on TikTok. That's one of the things, as I mentioned earlier, we kind of took our foot off the gas in some things. So it's really difficult to do everything all at once because there's such a learning curve, and everything you've learned today changes tomorrow. And so we're not on TikTok. For us, our social media presence is going to be on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook. And I certainly invite everybody listening to like us, to see what we're doing. We're not on Twitter. We're not on TikTok. We don't do any of that. We do have a YouTube presence. We do have a Google My Business presence as well. So, I mean, we're really on 5 platforms. We're looking to do more on those 5 platforms. Maybe at some point, TikTok and Twitter play an integral part to our digital strategy, but at this point, we're not doing anything with them.
Did you mention YouTube?
Yes, we are on YouTube, adding new content, just like we add new content, not as regularly on YouTube, but we do add content regularly to Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. But a lot of the content we do add is really now to the industry. It's not as end user reaching, and this has I think this is really reflective of a different mindset that we've had, where, we want to do more marketing and help the industry more, because we think that's probably the best way to grow, to enable them to market and sell more effectively, because they can market and sell more effectively than in their local markets than I can do as a distributor out of Maryland. And so what we're doing now is we're having a paradigm shift where we're really focused on providing our dealers with more tools, more knowledge, and the industry as a whole, and really with the goal of more marketing means more business for everybody. And I think we've kind of seen that, Eric, over the past couple of years, right? I think we've reached a point where the industry's gotten significantly better, maybe even exponentially better, just within the last 5 years or so. I've noticed that dealers collaborate with one another online. They don't fight for the same, job anymore as aggressively they used to, or the same scrap of meat. They're willing to help everybody now, whether you're across the street or across the country, which I think is very positive. And I assume that's because there's plenty of opportunity for everyone. Now, of course, that may change as the economy turns, but as of right now, it seems like everyone's collaborating well together.
And part of that collaboration is happening, I suppose, around like events, industry events. So obviously WFCT has been around for ages. Tinter battles, there was a reunion in Georgia, there's SEMA, there's the Autofilm Mastery. And I'm sure there's others that I didn't mention. I think, I know as a attendee of an event, you want as many manufacturers to show and support at an event. And then as a manufacturer or whatever it is, software distributor, you want as many tinters to show up. They both want the other side. Now it's the chicken or the egg there. I'm curious, like, where do you see, I've asked different people, different manufacturers and so on, how do you feel about this event? And like, it's been said here and there, like, well, we don't see much value because we're not really picking up too many new dealers, because we have dealers, like there's maybe as a new distributor, you can pick up new dealers, but as somebody with an established network, they're maybe just going there to show their presence and support the industry. I guess, my question is, what opportunities do you see? What reasons do you see as a distributor or manufacturer to show up? And then what reasons do you see if you're on the other side as a tinter or tint shop owner to also show up?
Yeah, good question. And as a master distributor of 3M window films and paint protection films, we usually collaborate with 3M for our industry presence. And so, I would say, to answer your question, it's very similar to a retailer not having a presence on Fifth Avenue in New York City, right? Most do. They may not even be profitable, but you have to have it for the awareness factor. Same thing with SEMA. If you're not at SEMA, what does that really mean? Does that mean you're not serious about the industry? Does the industry think, well, this company didn't show up, so maybe they're not doing well? And you may not get a direct benefit out of this particular event. And I'm sure a lot of events manufacturers can say, I don't see a return on investment, but it's one of perception. If you're not there and you don't show up, what does it tell the rest of the industry? So I do think it's important. I do think, though, that these different events, and there are more and more of them, as you pointed out, Eric, whether you're talking about IWFC, whether you're talking about Window Film Revolution Reunion, whether you're talking about SEMA, and they're all back to back to back. And that in and of itself is a heavy lift for a lot of manufacturers and distributors to go from trade show to trade show and incur all those expenses at once and take their eye off their regular work because they're traveling and they don't have time to really focus on what they typically focus on. So a lot of this is an inconvenience for sure. But SEMA is important. The IWFC is the industry trade show. That's important. I think the Window Film Revolution Reunion is a really cool concept. It was, its first year that Rick Tallman and his group set up, and just, we exhibited at it as EPD on behalf of 3M. And there was a lot of excitement there, because it was a big, giant tint off. And so, I think all of these different events serve a different purpose, and they're all important to be at and represent, regardless as to whether or not you can see a return on investment.
I like that answer. Sounds good to me. That's kind of where I fall into my thoughts as well, is like, you can't, like, I never gone into an event trying to quantify my return. It just seems like something you just do as part of the industry, and you try to do well, and it just, like, you hope it resonates with the industry and everybody plays their part. And definitely, like you said, what is it like? Walking around SEMA, like, you can't help but attach your visual with what you think of the company. Like,
Absolutely.
You look at a booth, and if it's
Yep.
a tiny booth and it's kind of, there's nothing there, or you look at a giant booth with super nice cars, or a big crowd of people, like it completely shapes what you think's inside that bottle and what you think's
Absolutely.
happening at a warehouse that may or may not exist. Right.
Yeah, absolutely, Eric. I mean, when you see a Mickey Mouse booth and it looks unprofessional and, people are sitting down in it and there's no engagement, and you're just looking at this from a distance, you may say, I'm not interested in partnering with this manufacturer or distributor, versus a real professional booth where people look professional that are staffing the booth. There's a lot of activity. There's a lot of engagement. There's something exciting going on. Whether or not you can attach a return on investment to that particular show or that particular booth presence, the fact of the matter is a good portion of your return on investment may be something you really can't track, because the person who saw it from afar or the person that you engaged with that didn't respond right away when you sent them an email as a follow-up, hey, met you at SEMA, are you interested in becoming a dealer or buying? And you don't hear from them. You may hear from them 6 months from now, and you may never attach the fact that they are now interested in you because they saw you at SEMA. So I think a lot of these, I think everyone should always use data to determine whether or not something is a worthy investment. I'm not suggesting that you don't do that. I'm not suggesting you don't look at your costs and try to see if there's a cost benefit analysis that's a positive story here. But by the same token, I think a lot of the shows that we're talking about have a lot of intangible or very difficult to predict opportunity, and potentially an opportunity cost if you don't exhibit. And that's one of perception. And that perception becomes someone within the industry's reality. And that reality may mean you don't get to partner with them in the future. And to your point, Eric, about a manufacturer distributor saying, well, I'm set with the number of dealers that I have, I don't have to exhibit. Well, the truth is dealers switch. Dealers move on, dealers retire, dealers sell, dealers get smaller, dealers get bigger. And so you can't necessarily predict that you're always going to grow with the same dealer base. I think, every manufacturer distributor always wants to support the dealers that are growth oriented, not hurt the dealers that are lifestyle or boutique dealers that are comfortable doing what they're doing. But, manufacturers are always on the hook for growth. I don't care whether you're manufacturer A or B. I don't care whether you're from the United States or another country. There's always this pressure to grow. That growth funds R&D. That R&D creates new products. Those new products create new industries that we then cater to, that we then make money off of. So that growth has a very good chain reaction that positively impacts everyone in the manufacturing vertical here, from manufacturer down to installer. That growth is very important. And so I don't think a manufacturer can always grow by necessarily predicting on having a stagnant dealer base. I think there's always going to be a mix or a change of dealers that always has to happen, whether it's at a certain geography, a certain town, a certain state, whatever the case might be. But I always think the model that we use at EPD is to say we always want to support those dealers that want to grow and scale, and those dealers that don't because they're content where they are. We want to, we don't want to do anything to jeopardize that. But we are always on the hook for growth. And these trade shows that you mentioned are a great way to grow, even if you can't attach growth to it. There might be something that is intangible, that affects someone's perception or the industry's perception of your standing within the industry, that may ultimately lead to growth.
Yeah. Yeah. So, you've been doing podcasts and Window Film Revolution with Rob Oranges, and like that's another one of those exposure things, just like being at SEMA and that exposure, and just like even if we're talking like WFCT or Tinter Battles or any of the events, even just being in the background of content that's there, then you can't really quantify who sees it in what countries, and it makes an impression. But the long form videos that you do with Rob Oranges, like that's, to me, that's ideal exposure. It's why I try to do, like this is a long form. Yep. I just like that ability to really get stuff out and, really say what you mean. The shorter you have to put something, the more difficult it is to word it, right? It's hard to get your message across in a sentence, but if you give somebody an hour, it's no problem. So with that said, I really enjoy watching you and Rob Oranges. I'm curious if, like, what you've seen kind of out of it on your end. Do you like what kind of growth you felt from it? Is it meeting your expectations as far as jumping in and making that commitment and being live? And have you seen Not necessarily
Yeah.
quantifiable money stuff, but like overall, what have you seen from it, or how are you enjoying it?
Well, I really hadn't thought about it. I mean, I guess I would say this: it's not too big of a commitment because it's about it's about an hour a month. Although I think Rob and I would like to do more, especially if there's an appetite for more. And really, it came from the fact that when you look at Window Film Revolution, a lot of the online chatter is about automotive. Yet there's always these automotive dealers that want to look at flat, right? And so there's definitely a thirst for knowledge, especially on the flat side. And in just reading a lot of Rob's comments on Window Film Revolution, I really was respecting what he was saying. And I said, wow, he knows a ton about this. And so we need to really get this in front of everybody within the group. And, maybe it's something that we can do together, because I would like to share whatever knowledge I have, along with try to help the industry as best as we can. Because again, I do think we have to continue to grow in a lot of different ways in order for us to all continue to scale our businesses, whether you're talking about knowledge, labor, whatever the case might be. And so, I can't necessarily attach, and I think it's like I was just explaining with SEMA, I can't necessarily attach a return on investment to the commitment, but I do think it's helping the industry, and that's really what I want to do. I do think that certainly if more and more people know about energy products distribution as a 3M master distributor, that benefits EPD. Because I think a lot of people know 3M, but they may not know that 3M goes to market with three 3M master distributors, of which EPD is one. But that's not the reason, that's not the direct reason I do it with Rob. I saw a need through more engagement with Window Film Revolution. I liked the rules of engagement on Window Film Revolution, because I think it keeps the conversations positive and classy, with no manufacturers, with no bashing of any manufacturer. And so I think you can have really productive discussions with a curious audience who wants to learn more about flat glass, which is historically my strength. I've been in this industry for 20 years. I grew up with commercial, or I should say flat, which means commercial and residential. But as a value-added distributor, what we can do best is really to help move the commercial industry more so than the residential industry. It's easier for us as a distributor to interface with property managers, ESCOs, building owners, and things like that than it is, a homeowner that has a sliding glass door they want tinted. And so my expertise has always been at the big building level. And so just seeing people having an interest in learning more about flat, even if it's not looking at big buildings, but it is looking at the sliding glass door, happy to do it. Rob makes it easy to do. He has great knowledge. He's been in the industry longer than I have, and his technical skills are absolutely incredible. In fact, he doesn't know this, but he might be listening, so I'll tell him through your podcast. I was talking to someone that knows Rob, and we were talking about our Window Film Revolution discussion that we have once a month. And that individual has a lot of respect for Rob and said, Rob's knowledge is so extensive, but he's so humble about it. Because he has a great way of communicating something that he knows like that, which is hard for maybe someone new or someone who has no exposure to the technical aspect of window film. He has an easy way of making them understand it. And it doesn't come off anything less than that. He does a wonderful job. And so the conversation of us on an hour and a half once a month is free flowing. We're able to play off each other once in a while. We're able to play off on each other throughout the entire hour and a half. But once in a while, we'll get questions from the audience. And now we're getting more and more questions, which is what we ultimately want. We want more engagement from the audience. We want the audience to ask a specific question so we can answer them, because those answers to those specific questions mean someone's learned something. And that ultimately is a domino effect or a chain reaction that I think benefits everyone in the industry.
It really does. And for anybody who has missed them, go back and watch them. Like I can't say enough, your knowledge and then Rob's knowledge. And if you want to learn anything about flat glass, especially to have access to that, you really are both performing a service. And the fact that you do it in a way that, it's not like you're out here, like you're two different companies coming together. Like you
Yeah.
said, this isn't about selling anything. Like it really, the consistency between your interest in doing what you feel is best for the industry comes across with both the university and then also, obviously with your podcast. So, I mean,
Well, and I appreciate that. To your point, I mean, to a certain extent, we're competitors. To another extent, we're not. But it's like we discussed earlier. I think collaboration is taking a greater role within this industry versus competition, and so it's easy for us to come together. What you do with your presence digitally is incredible, Eric, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak in your forum because I've watched it prior to being a guest on it, which I think was about a year or so ago with my friend Chris Hardy from Expel, and I think having an established forum like yours and being able to come on it is something that I'm happy to do because there might be some questions that I can answer from someone. I think sometimes the industry is thirsty for knowledge, not just about technical or product or flat glass information, but really more about, why are manufacturers this way or why are distributors that way, right? We sometimes don't understand why the other part of the chain operates a certain way. And so, it gives me an opportunity to say that I know every manufacturer is on the hook for growth, whether they tell you or not, they have to grow. Every company has to grow, really, for the most part, especially if they're publicly traded. And they ask that of their distributors and they ask that of their partners and things like that. And so it's not something unique to any one manufacturer. They all have to grow. And I think we have to embrace that because when we ask for more things from our manufacturer, why don't you have this? Why don't you have that? Why don't you make a pink film? Why don't you make a pink, a purple polka dot film? Why don't you make a film that does A, B, C, D, E, F, and G? Well, maybe they can, right? But they have to see a reason to do it. And quite frankly, they have to have the resources to fund the R&D to do it. And that happens from sales growth and increased profitability ultimately. So, these are some things that I think we have to certainly respect everyone in the channel's position because they serve a different portion of the channel. We're all needed. We need manufacturers to make films. We need distributors to get them in the hands of dealers. We need dealers to market at the local level and sell to the end user. And we need the dealer to install or the installer to install on behalf of the dealer for the end user. And so all four of us play an important role in the value chain that ultimately to get film on glass, certain things have to happen. And as we look at new solutions to new problems that exist in buildings and homes and cars, we want new products to address new solutions to new problems. And that only comes from manufacturers innovating based on profitability that can ultimately fund additional R&D.
And who is your customer? The people that are your customers already know you're their customer, but like who could potentially be your customer? Is it a geographic area based on certain brands?
Yeah. And historically, we've looked at our customer as the end user in the sense that we always wanted to market to the end user to create end user awareness to ultimately give leads to dealers who are our customer. And of course, we know that because we're transacting business with our dealers. But we always wanted to market to end users. So we always kind of thought of end users as our sort of far-reaching customer. And maybe a lot of manufacturers do that because ultimately it's the end user that it's ultimately the end user that needs the product in order for it to be bought from a manufacturer, whether it goes through a distributor or not. But what I think we're putting more focus on, though, Eric, is where our customer really is within the industry. It is the person transacting business with us. And as a master distributor of 3M, and EPD is exclusively 3M, we serve a region. The region that we serve is from Maine to South Carolina and parts of the eastern Midwest, dipping out into Indiana, Ohio, Kentucky. And so that's really where we focus within the industry there. And we serve a lot of different customer bases, right? I mean, we serve architectural and we serve automotive customers. And within those different buckets, we have automotive customers that consume window film and or paint protection film and or ceramic coating and or vinyl. And on the architectural side, we have customers that consume energy films and or security films and or decorative films and or architectural finishes. So we have a lot of different customer segments. It can be kind of hard to really, it can be kind of hard to manage, but we try to do it as best we can, because when all is said and done, we're focused more and more on our customer now versus the end user. Because what I think we're doing, as I alluded to earlier, is we've got a marketing strategy in place that goes to the end user through digital platforms, that ultimately the call to action is to funnel leads to our dealers through our dealer locator. So that frees us, or that gives us time to now focus on who's transacting business with us, which is our dealer network.
And if somebody was outside of your region and wanted just simply to be able to have consulting time with Manny, is that something that you offer?
Yeah, we certainly do, right? I mean, we don't necessarily reach outside of our territory, just because there are 2 other 3M master distributors that do this. But certainly I invite people to contact me. Happy to help the industry. There's nothing wrong with conversation, especially productive conversation. It's the same as if I were to engage in any of the relevant industry Facebook groups too, or LinkedIn groups. And so happy to do that. I think if more and more of us are collaborating, and I think other industries have probably seen this, if more and more of us collaborate with one another, I think that continues to funnel growth. And so we're more eager to collaborate because we know the industry grows versus looking at one another as competitors.
Yeah, well, that comes across really clearly with everything you do. So that's, well, you can say it, but in practice, it's different. Like, it's one thing to say it. It's one thing to completely live it. And it comes across very clearly with you.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. I mean, a lot of times, already I'll get questions from people that I don't know, looking for flat glass insight, and they represent another manufacturer, and I'm happy to certainly provide insight. But when all is said and done, ultimately my answer would be based on a lot of things that I don't necessarily know, which is another manufacturer's portfolio, approach to glass breakage, and things like that. But I'll routinely get questions of, well, what would you recommend for heat rejection? Well, I don't know a lot about the particular application to say, well, I recommend film A, but maybe film A could cause glass breakage. And the last thing I want to do is make a recommendation or a suggestion that leads it to somebody that I'm speaking to put a film on glass that cracks glass. And those are some of the things that I think is important for dealers to recognize. And Rob and I have talked about this in our window film revolution talk, which is to say there's more than just glass type and window film type that leads to glass breakage. But where there's a real thirst for industry knowledge seems to be in terms of film recommendations and glass breakage. And those two go hand in hand, and sometimes they conflict. But I'm always happy to help whenever I can. And to your point, Eric, about, it coming across, thank you. I appreciate that. As I alluded to earlier, there's more and more that we're looking to do at EPD that benefits the industry. And I hope I'm able to come back on your podcast, because it's got a great following, and I hope to be able to share some new details about some things EPD is working on to continue to help the industry that I think will benefit the industry. Won't be manufacturer specific, but I think will address a need that I've been hearing about for a long period of time from our customers, as well as other members of the industry who don't transact business with EPD.
It's very cool. And obviously you're welcome back absolutely anytime. And thank you. Yeah. And to the point of, I mean, even just how obviously we met was through Chris Hardy, which is interesting, because I met Chris Hardy through a previous guest, and it kind of just goes down like a chain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we've been really clear from 9 to 5, Chris and I are competitors. He's with Expel. I represent 3M. So we're competitors from 9 to 5. And, I mean, it's dog eat dog in that regard. And he's a very worthy competitor. Expel is a very worthy competitor. But after 5 o'clock, we're best of friends. And so it was an opportunity to come on your podcast about a year or so ago, where that hopefully came across to your audience where, hey, that's collaboration. Even though we're competitors from 9 to 5, after 5 o'clock, we can collaborate for the benefit of the industry, and talk and have real, good discussions that hopefully people within the industry can appreciate.
Well, I do have a video I will play at the end, but before we
Okay.
do that, I wanted to ask you, is there anything else that we didn't touch upon that you had in mind to discuss?
No, I mean, I think you asked me some really good questions, which allowed me to cover what I wanted to cover. Um, I think what I would like to just kind of reinstate is that if people, or if there's a thirst for any kind of knowledge, I'm always happy to be reached via Facebook or email or text message, or through these podcasts, whether it's yours, whether it's the one that I do with Rob Oranges from Window Film Revolution. I think there's I think there are more and more people that are really trying to take a bigger presence in helping the rest of the industry, recognizing that this industry, in terms of new members, seems like it's exponentially growing. It just does, because you see so much chatter on Facebook, and you'll see a lot of new chatter, consistent chatter from names you don't recognize. And you're saying, who's this? And you kind of go down that rabbit hole and you look at their profile and you learn more about them, and you realize they just entered the industry 3 months ago. And you're seeing with all this posting that they're doing, they have a clear appetite for more industry knowledge. And so if there's something that we can do together at this level using these digital tools that we have at our fingertips to help, I know that there will be a long-term benefit to all of us, because it took us 50 years to get to where we're at right now, where we're not fighting over the same job, the same scrap of meat, that we're willing to collaborate with one another, and where we're openly willing to say, I have more work than I can handle. I can't do what's being asked of me. I'm booked out 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 2 months in advance, whatever the case might be. That tells me something, which is there's going to be more and more people entering this industry, and it's all in our best interest that they know what they're doing. Because the one thing we don't want is new people coming into this industry, not receiving the appropriate training, which is easy to do because there is a shortage of appropriate training, I think, because you can get into this industry for $100, right? You have a ladder, you have $100, you can buy a cheap roll of film, you can buy some really cheap installation tools, and you can get to work installing film on glass. Whether or not you install the right film on glass, or it causes the glass to crack, or that film doesn't last long, if you do something that doesn't positively influence the end user, that bad word of mouth ultimately hurts us all. So I think we all have vested interest to make sure that all these new people that are entering the industry, whether it's window film, whether it's paint protection film, whether it's ceramic coating, whether it's vinyl, that they're properly trained, have all the answers to the questions that they need, and that they only can, and they can only feel that way if there's this spirit of collaboration. So I'm hoping that I'm a positive part of that.
You're definitely a passionate, positive part of it. And anybody listening or watching should get over any shyness and take you up on the offer when they have something to ask or to, have a conversation about, because I can't emphasize enough how tremendously valuable. I mean, if you think about, okay, hey, I want to talk about this subject, I need to talk about somebody who has, a good amount of knowledge on it. All right. Who has offered their time? It's not like many people, right? So the fact that you are, you offer your time and you're being so generous with it, people should take you up on it, because there's nothing wrong with getting to know somebody and establishing a relationship. It doesn't mean you'll talk every week, but why not get somewhere, Had a last minute question.
Sure.
It's not last minute, but it was just in the last minute. It was from Nick, and he said, do you believe film manufacturers being sponsors at music events nationwide, large festivals, would increase awareness more? And I guess to add something to that, at a rate of return that would be worth doing? Because of course there'll always be awareness, but is it something you think could have some value in doing?
That's a question I'm not sure of, Nick. I don't know how to answer that one, to be frank. I think manufacturers really are looking at the traditional. I should say this. I think manufacturers are looking at digital, and industry publications or industry events as really what's going to occupy 100% of their promotional or marketing budget. I think SEMA, IWFC, potentially Window Film Revolution Reunion, and any other kind of relevant industry event is probably where they're focused on, along with advertising in industry relevant publications like Window Film Magazine and the sister magazine, PPF Magazine. In terms of a music venue, honestly, I don't know. That's not something I can speak to, but I'm going to assume it's very similar to advertising on TV or advertising on, any other type of public forum. It might even be difficult to get the message across to the end user who's just seeing another advertisement. I mean, what we do and the problems that we solve are very difficult to explain, I think, in a 30-second commercial or a short message, right? And a lot of times it's because the problems we solve with the products that we buy and install, those problems aren't necessarily problems that the end user understands until the problem's been pointed out to them. One of the things that I think about is that I don't think the average homeowner understands what the limitations or vulnerabilities or inefficiencies are with glass. And the reason for that is because they've always had glass or windows in their home, unless they lived in a place that had no windows, and houses do have windows. They've always had exposure to windows since they were a child, and they could notice a window and open it and get fresh air. And because of that, you never think to challenge, why do I have windows? And you never think to challenge, what are the drawbacks with those windows? Well, the drawbacks are windows are inefficient and windows are vulnerable, right? And so you think about the price that you pay as a homeowner to have a window in your home. You pay a price to the gas and electric company every month because windows are inefficient. Every month you pay your utility bill, whether it's gas or electric, whether you heat your home with oil. You're paying with the checkbook a price to have a window in your home because your utility bills are higher thanks to having windows, right? And then you also pay a price potentially with your security or personal safety because windows are vulnerable. If someone wants to break into your home, they're not going to do it by busting down your brick wall. They're going to do it by breaking your sliding glass door, your glass window. And so we pay a price as a homeowner to have a window. But the average homeowner, because they've grown up with windows in their home their whole lives, they don't think about the price that they pay. Now, if you educate them about that price, that windows are inefficient, windows are vulnerable, and you explain to them why and how you have a solution that addresses that problem that they didn't realize they had until you explained it to them, then all of a sudden you open their minds to having a deeper conversation about the products that you offer and the solutions that you provide. I think that's difficult. I think that's a difficult message to portray in a 30-second advertisement. I think if someone knows that they want window film or paint protection film or vinyl film or a ceramic coating, I think if they've already made up their mind, then you want to be able to hit that end user with a 30-second clip as to why they should buy a certain manufacturer's product, or a dealer should hit them up with why they should buy that product and have it installed by a certain dealer. But if somebody doesn't know they have a problem, and that you offer a solution to that problem, I think that's a very difficult message to convey in 30 seconds.
It's especially why I feel like in flat glass, it's always helpful to go on consultations because look, if you're worried about the size of the window, bring a 72-inch roll. It's going to work most of the time. But you can get measurements from customers, but can you really explain to them the solution to their problems? Can you walk around their home and notice the skylights, notice the dusty blinds in the bathroom and the different aspects of, commercial? Do you notice the opportunities for anti-graffiti in a bathroom? Like going out there opens that up, and the graphics on the wall and so on. Yeah. Whereas, I can see running a business a different way, but if you really want to go headstrong into flat glass, like you're saying, it is an education and solution situation.
It is, and it's one that requires a good technical foundation in order to relay what the solution or the product offers in terms of a solution, and making sure that if you're being asked for a recommendation, and I don't like to use the term recommendation because I think that puts a certain onus of responsibility on the dealer that you don't want to put on yourself, whether it's in terms of glass breakage or it's in terms of performance. but when you're going to be asked for a recommendation because you're the trusted source. So it's really important to understand what are the variables at play, understand what the implications are so that you can make an appropriate suggestion, not necessarily recommendation, but suggestion, because you will be the trusted source that the end user or the customer is looking for. So yeah, it's a technical sale that requires a good technical background, and it shouldn't be taken haphazardly. I think on the automotive side, a lot of times these products are done or are purchased from an aesthetic standpoint, whether it's to darken a window, whether it's to protect a paint, whether it's to change the color of the paint, or whether it's to make the paint easier to clean. I think there's an aesthetic element there. Don't get me wrong, it's still a technical sale. I'm not undermining that, but I think it's a far greater technical sale on the architectural side when you're trying to make windows more energy efficient and less vulnerable, or you're trying to modernize a window by making it less boring because windows are just clear and you're trying to dress it up in terms of aesthetics.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, you could potentially give somebody a mirror in their window by, you know, if you know, like you can do all sorts of things.
And they don't want that.
Like you said, like you don't necessarily think about windows until you have a reason to think about the windows. And I know for me, one of the big ones that put it in the forefront, I lived in a condo in downtown Orlando. We had floor to ceiling windows, and it was east facing. And in the morning, my sofa was on fire. Like you couldn't sit on it because it was roasting. It was a white leather sofa. It was years ago, many years ago. But point is, that's when it really was like, okay, I have to find a solution to that. And that actually ended up in a way turning out to my entrance into this industry.
And you're right, Eric. You know, you realized you had a problem, but what if you didn't realize you had a problem and it took somebody to point it out for you? And then you realized after somebody pointed it out, you know what, I do have a problem. It's really hot in here, or this is roasting. And I don't think people realize they have a problem until the problem happens. It's kind of like the person who doesn't realize how vulnerable glass is until somebody breaks into their home. Well, now you've had everything stolen, quite possibly your safety threatened. You feel violated. Your privacy has been completely taken away, and your sense of security. And so now you're looking for that solution. You're being reactionary. Well, what if you knew how vulnerable glass was before you were ever, before anyone ever broke in? You might be more willing to invest in security film or some other security measure before that happens. Why? Because you knew what the risk was and that you have a potential problem. But it took somebody to educate you before you made that realization. Otherwise, you're waiting for somebody to break in, and then it'll dawn on you.
Yep. And I ran into, on a commercial side of it, realization for the business owners of downtown Palm Springs, where somebody basically went through the whole like main road of downtown Palm Springs and tagged every glass storefront, like etched it, every single one. And I went in a store and I was like, you know, that sucks. You know, like I just had to point it out. And they're like, yeah, happened to everybody. And I said, you have to get anti-graffiti film. And they're like, what do you mean? And I explained it. And they're like, can you do it? I'm like, no, I'm not going to, like, that's not my business anymore, but you need to get it. Like, because next time you replace that, and like, you know, their eyes light up. Like they've realized now they have a problem. They didn't even know the solution exists. But like anti-graffiti is one where when it happens is when you go, oh shit. Like, you know,
It's just one of those products that provides a solution to a problem that somebody didn't know that they were going to have until they had it. And that's where it's all about being proactive. And I think, you know, our responsibility as the channel is from a marketing and a selling standpoint is to make end users aware of the vulnerabilities and inefficiencies of glass, and to a certain point, the aesthetics of glass, right? Because no one said glass has to be clear, plain, and boring, right? And that's why we have decorative films out there. And so the more we educate the end user, the better off we'll be, because that'll ultimately fuel demand. But I think there's a two-pronged approach from a sales and marketing strategy. I think the first approach is to make sure that when an end user knows they want a product, a film, you're the one they contact, right? That's the easy one. And that typically happens by making sure you have a good digital presence, and it's key. The other one is to say, well, I've got to do some business development. I've got to make people aware of a problem that they don't know they have, but they really do have, and that I have a cost-effective solution to address the problem that they have that they don't really know they have. And then it may not pay an immediate dividend. And we talked about that in terms of immediate return on investment with respect to some of these shows. But this is just another example of saying this BD that you do, this business development that you do, it may not pay an immediate return on investment. It may never pay a return on investment. It's a risk, but everything in business is a risk. And if you do something, and maybe 6 months down the road, the end user says, somebody told me about a solution like anti-graffiti film. I think I need that. Well, they may not remember who you were. So they may go online and Google anti-graffiti film. They may never find your company. They may find your competitor, and you were the one who educated, and your competitor is the one who benefited. And so that's why it is a two-pronged approach to make sure you do business development, but also that you're easy to find, because that business card you gave somebody 6 months ago probably wound up in the trash about 6 minutes after you left. And so they're not going to remember your name, but they are going to remember what you sold or the product that you offered. And they're just going to go to Google, type up anti-graffiti film, and come across your competitor.
Right. Or hopefully you. And
Hopefully
just to kind of highlight like what you just said, as a window film dealer, you have to think about like what you just said about making it clear that you offer the solution to their problem. So I know for my company, when people would call and they'd say, hey, we're looking for privacy, I'd say, we had a script. And when somebody mentions the word privacy, you have to say, absolutely. Are you looking for something that you can see out of, but has privacy from the outside looking in during the daytime? And they go, yes, that's what I'm looking for. That's perfect. That's what we do. When can we set up a time? You have to reinforce it. It's not just a matter of we have window film, we can come out.
Correct.
And right. Because you have to show them that this is a solution for the specific thing that they're looking for. And that content has to come across on your website. And it's something to think about when you're putting out social media posts. Are you conveying like a solution to somebody's problem, or are you informing them, like you said, of a problem they might not realize they have? Or are you just posting something that kind of has some words?
You hit the nail right on the head, Eric. I mean, when you're talking about a product that very few people know, and they don't even know if they have a problem, but it requires you to explain it to them. Talking in terms of products is not the answer. It's talking in terms of solutions, right? And I think sometimes we default to talking in terms of products because it's ultimately what we're installing is a product. We're not installing a solution, although we should think of it that way. The end user doesn't know anti-graffiti film from security film from decorative film. What they do know is I'm too hot, or I just had my window tagged, or I just got broken into.
Right.
So, kind of going back to what you mentioned about our website, part of our website development is to speak to both audiences. The audience that knows what product they want, and I think you pointed that out. The other audience is to say, I have a problem. Can you offer me a solution? Because I don't know what the product is that provides the solution. So we offer the user both ways to navigate. There's a products tab and there's a solutions tab. And so the products tab is for those who know sun control film or insulating film, right? All of our products are listed there. And thank you for bringing it up. Versus the end user who doesn't know the first thing about products, but they know, hey, I've got a problem. I need distraction markers. I want to update spandrel glass. I want color change on my car. My neighbor's siding is melting and she's blaming me for it. So, that's where the end user can pick, okay, here's my problem. What's your solution? And going right to, the solutions tab and then scrolling down to a problem or the solution there takes you to an explanation of the problem along with the solution that we offer in terms of our product. So now all of a sudden the notion is, or the conclusion hopefully that the end user draws is, I need X to solve my problem Y. And as you see there, Eric, that's really the call to action that we offer in our website. And this is really behind the scenes. And that's why I say a lot of our customers don't necessarily know that, because we are driving more and more end users to our dealer locator through that call to action that you see right there, find an installer, or the one above it. We have on each page, find an installer a couple times because we want the end user to see that. And the truth of the matter is all those call to actions, whether it's request product demonstration, find an installer, or request no obligation estimate, those are all call to actions that ultimately end up in the dealer's hands. And it's all behind the scenes. So it's allowing us the luxury of taking our time, which is now freed up in terms of marketing to end users, because it's not on autopilot, but it's done all behind the scenes in terms of what I'd like to think is an aggressive and effective digital marketing strategy. It now frees up us to work to market to the industry.
You have a
which is
very,
our customer, not the end user.
very legitimate shop as well. For anybody who hasn't gone over there, just the way you've broke it down, it had to be tedious.
Oh gosh.
Like,
let me tell you something. It was, Eric, and I appreciate the compliment. So I can tell you that when we launched this store, we launched it just to get a store on the site, but we didn't really launch it properly until earlier this year. And it didn't start without a lot of tedious work on my part. And so I can tell you that I spent my holiday, the month of December and early January doing a lot of tedious work, and I still didn't make a dent. It took until just recently to the point where I've gotten all the products that I want to get up there. There's still more to do. We just added all of our 3M vinyl 2080 series. So 3M vinyl wrap films 2080 series to our store. We stock all of the colors from 3M. They're now added to our store. We're continuing to add more products. We're continuing to improve the product descriptions in order to improve the user experience. We're also trying to improve the navigation and the ability to filter. And so if you go to our installation tools section, we give you the ability to filter by color, by application, by type, because if some people will call us and say, I need that yellow squeegee. What's it called? Well, now they can go to our store, pick tools. They can go to view all installation tools on the right-hand side and then start filtering by yellow.
right.
And we make it so that you can click one button, and one button will generate all of our tools in a PDF catalog. And all of a sudden now, like for example, download full installation tools catalog. That is a PDF that generates based on all the tools that we have in our store. So some people don't like shopping with a store. They like looking at a paper catalog. Well, they can download a PDF catalog of everything that's in our store by just clicking that, and it's automatically populated.
It's so thorough and clear. I know it's going to be it's worth all the time. It totally is. Anybody who's selling tools and is not investing the effort to make a catalog be as clear as possible, like you have, is eventually it's not going to work out.
Well, and I could tell you, it really was tedious to the point where I was just kind of going cross-eyed staring at the screen. But I wanted to get it done because I knew that it was important. But you've got to, for every tool or for every item in your store, you're creating a meta title, a meta description, a long description, a short description, along with a whole bunch of other fields that you have to populate in order for that item to be what the end user sees and to have a positive user experience. And you want to make sure that your description is good, and you want to make sure that if you're selling a knife, that you pair it with the right replacement blade. So it's just one click away, so that the customer can get to where they want to go with as few clicks as possible, and to make the checkout process as easy as they possibly can. We give them an opportunity to submit a sales tax resale certificate so that we don't have to charge them tax where we have an economic nexus. So, we try to make it as thorough as possible, and we're only trying to make it better. So in addition to having all of 3M's 2080 colors, which there are about 100 of. So that's for those that don't know, 3M Vinyl Wrap Film Series 2080 is 3M's vinyl color change film, like their yellows, their blues, their blacks, their whites, their carbon fibers, their textures, their color flips, their mattes, their gloss, their satins, their metallics. We have all of the SKUs in stock. And if they're not currently in stock, it's just because we're waiting for them from 3M. They're in transit. So we have really now increase the number of SKUs that we offer our customers. We sell it nationwide. We sell full rolls, and we sell it by the linear foot. You can purchase any of these products by the linear foot. You don't want a full roll. You want 6 feet, buy 6 feet. You want 7 feet, buy 7 feet. You want 30 feet, buy 30 feet. And shipping's included.
It's beautiful.
And we're actually in the process, too, of improving the photos. There's some inconsistency with the photos that you see there. We're looking to make the photos consistent. So we just got these photos up there just to have placeholders right now, but we're going through the stages of making the photos more consistent so that it continues to improve the user experience. And then we're also looking at probably a complete store redesign next year, because what we want to do, and I think we talked about this earlier, is it's so hard to play catch up. But once you catch up, you can't rest on your laurels. How do you move ahead? And so as I'm catching up, or as we're catching up, we're trying to move ahead. And so a redesign on the site, I think, will only allow us to do that. But we have our tools, our ceramic coating, our 2080, our 3M decorative films, some 3M die knock patterns on this store. And so this is really for those members of the industry that want to buy those materials, that don't want to use a telephone. They don't want to call. They don't want to email. They don't want to text, because we also take orders over the phone or through text message or through email. Maybe some younger users like using the digital experience with a store. We offer it for them.
I love every bit of it. And it's, it's not just a shop, it's a place you can go in and educate yourself and learn about what tools exist that you weren't necessarily looking for, what films exist that you weren't looking for. Like that's the best part about a shop. Like you said, you want to match the blade to the handle and make it as easy as possible, but you may not even know a certain handle exists, and you find it because, or a film exists. You find it because of a proper shop, and you read a proper description, so you know what it is and why you could use it. And that's why, there's tremendous value in what you're doing for everybody, really.
Yeah. And I'm glad you're able to appreciate it. To your point, it was tedious, but we're trying to make it as good as we possibly can for those that are using it, especially for the first time. And to your point, Eric, about sort of, knowing what blade goes with what knife, we've also not just tried to pair, the replacement blade to the knife, but also to say, hey, if you like knife A, you may also like knife B. It's a little different for a different application. So we're trying to do the cross sell as well as the upsell by recommending products. So when you look at knife A, we recommend a cross sell as well as an upsell.
Well, keep it up, because you don't need to hear. You're obviously not going to stop because you've gone this far, and it's awesome. But I really can't stress enough how important I think what you're doing is on the digital front. It's everything, and the fact that you see it, the industry's in good hands.
Thank you. You. And I do appreciate the compliment. I have to say I feel like although I've been in this industry for 20 years and always very involved with our dealer network, I think I may not have been as involved within the industry as I could have been and I should have been, and I'm trying to change that. And a lot of it was by watching influencers like you. I was seeing all the positive stuff that you were doing, and I said, I'd like to participate in that, because I think there's a spirit of collaboration. People like Eric are doing it, Patrick Fransco, and so I thought, if Eric's doing it and Patrick Fransco's doing it, and Rick Tallman's doing it, and Chris Hardy's doing it, and Dean Mitchell's doing it, and all these other guys are doing it, I can try to help too. And I did it by, my first podcast was with you, and I appreciate that, with Chris. And now I've got, it's not my own podcast, it's through Window Film Revolution with Rob Oranges, who's been a great teammate. Always happy to be a part of more of these events, and happy to help wherever I can.
Well, thank you. And thank you for obviously the support, both watching it and being on and doing your own thing. It really, it goes a long way, and it goes a long way forever. I think you'd be very surprised. I don't know if you've thought about it or if you have any clue, but how many people potentially watch what you do and watch it later on and refer back to it.
No idea.
It lives forever on the internet.
Yeah,
and,
I know. But, I never really know how many people look at it. Maybe there's a way that I could find that out, but I don't know. I know how many people are online when I'm actually doing the podcast with Rob, but I don't know how many people actually go back and look at it.
Yeah. Well, I have a promo video to play. It's for Tinter Battles, so we could watch it together, and then we'll cut this thing off, and we'll go about our ways for the evening.
Great.
All right. So I'm going to just add it to the screen, and it'll start playing, and it is for Tinter Battles. And here we go.
Question. What's better, two-staging or bottom loading? Heat gun or torch? Maybe it needs its own competition. Okay, add some energy. That helps. But what it really needs is simple rules. My fellow Americans. Not those kinds of rules.
So I can two-stage or bottom load?
Yes.
What about my torch?
That too, but why stop there? What if this competition was held in a world-class island resort? Plus, trainings and business masterclasses with the industry's top leaders today. Seriously, can you do that?
Yeah, it's Tinter Battles, and it's in January to kick off 2023 to be your best year ever!
That is an experience, but it feels like it needs one more. Oh, you. Family-friendly Tinter Actions, Tintertainment, Tinter Battles 2023, where your ticket is your entry to the getaway of a lifetime. See you there.
I'm there. That's a great video, Eric.
Thank you. I mean, the credit 100% goes to Carlos, the man behind Tintertainment. I'm just the facilitator of the video, but I agree. It is, I'm glad to hear you're going to be there, and
Yep.
hope
I appreciate the offer, and yes, I will be there.
Tinter Trivia.
Absolutely. That's
Yeah.
really exciting, actually.
Cool.
I'm looking for us to win.
That's the plan. I mean, that's definitely the plans.
No, I think this is great. And I think, I think you're probably going to see more and more industry events. And I think there's a real appetite for more and more events, because somebody may not be able to make it to SEMA. Somebody may not be able to make it to IWFC, but there are other events that they can make it to, whether it's geography, whether it's timing. When all these industry events are back to back to back, it's hard to make all of them. So having something in January, especially when people want to make it to go to Florida where it's warmer and get out of the Northeast or the Midwest, awesome location, and the venue looks great.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for, I look forward to seeing you there, and definitely
Likewise.
Team Tint Wiz community for the Tinter Trivia.
Game on.
Game on. All right, Manny, thanks again for everything you do, and of course for tonight.
Thank you, Eric. And I appreciate everything you do as well. And I appreciate the invitation and opportunity to be in your forum.
All right. Well, I'll see you soon in Florida.
Sounds great. Talk to you then.
Have a great night.
Take care.